will be quite cinematic, let's call it. However, whether or not we'll get that level of racing, we will find out.
Well, we had to turn it up a notch, considering, as you said, Monaco is such a difficult track to get that entertainment and then battles. So let's stick it at night time, throw a few LED lights across the track, and let's spice it up a little bit. VNT Luca in the Sauber is the first driver out on track here in Monte Carlo. Christian retires. Is that a qualifying ban for the McLaren driver as the Sauber goes in towards Mirabeau?
Yeah, I would say so, but Christian didn't retire on track. So, it's either probably banned from last race, or it's him being, you know what, I don't want to qualify, I'll go last to first. And try and be, like, ballsy about it. However, it's so competitive, it will be so difficult to work your way up through the field. Unless you're Jarno Opmi in disguise, then maybe you could have a chance here today.
Absolutely. So, all of the drivers are on an outlap. There's only a few drivers still left in the pit lane, so it will be Luca as the first driver to get us underway as he comes out of Anthony Nogueras at turn 19 down towards the line. Let's ride on board with the Kick Sauber and let's see what he can do. Down in towards turn 1 at Sandevot and then back up the hill towards the Beau Rivage at turn 2, in towards the Masonette at turn 3, the left-hander easing on the brakes, back onto the throttle into the right-hander at the Casino and down towards sector 2, and he is looking very quick here in towards turn 6 at the slowest corner on the F1 calendar. A little bit deep there from the Sauber, but he did it to get the exit on that car. Down in towards turn 7, really close to the apex, through Portier, down into the tunnel at turn 9, and the Kick Sauber kicking some butt here as we go down in towards turn 10 and 11 through the Novel chicane, down towards Sabac at turn 12, and he's made a huge mistake there, Harry.
Yeah, just went across that wall. It's not going to be too major. You can of course see Lucas still pushing on quite aggressively through Rascasse and up to that final corner, back onto the main straight, as they're going to commit to this lap. Overline, it's a 1:09 to be a banker here today, with I believe T-Show crossing line now to go a good 9/10 quicker. Great improvement with a Williams now crossing the line to start a fly, and Aston Martin of Mattis going to P2.
You are right. So Matthias Guller in P4, IRT Nick going up to P2 in that Racing Bull. Qualifying is just as important as the race here in PSF2. Sorry, somebody's at my door, mate. I will ride on board with Benjamin.
Okay, I'm now going to try and find Benjamin, who is now heading up into Mirabeau High. It's been a decent first sector from this point that it is purple. However, the game doesn't truly know whether or not it's actually your quicker sector, so it's quite rubbish saying it's a really good first sector when it could in fact be the slowest of them all, as they go through the infamous Monaco tunnel down towards the Novel chicane now, dropping the gears down to third, chucking it through the chicane, back on power, the Aston Martin darting out of the way as Benjamin goes through to back. The first two sectors done, it's a 51.1 across the two, out of the swimming pool chicane into Rascasse. You can see a Williams going through Rascasse, about to start their lap, as Benjamin rounding out that final corner, DRS and battery in use as they cross the line now to do a 1:09.2. Of course, Nathan is still away, so I'm just going to talk along as someone else is on a push. I believe one of the Williams, I believe that's the Ivan, he's in fact invalidated. So we'll look at Zane, who's heading in, well, I'll look at Zane, who's crashed in the Novel chicane. That's both McLarens out of this qualifying session. The Racing Bulls and Mercedes having to take evasive action here in Monaco. That's a shame for McLaren, meaning they're practically both set up to start at the back, while Salvo has set a very good first sector so far, going through the Casino hairpin into Mirabeau Low now as they continue to push that Aston Martin on. Into the tunnel they go. The Aston Martin deploying their battery as they work to the Novell, brake just after the 100 bollard, drop to the second, let the car roll through like a boat. There are many along that harbour, as you can clearly see, pushing through to back. It's a 51.8 after the first two sectors, not the quickest we've seen this event so far, as they braze the barrier going through Raskas and pushing all the way up to the line now. What can Salvo do? It's currently 14th. It will be only P10 as RTC heading to the Novell chicane now in the Mercedes. I think I hear Nathan as they almost meet the same fate as Zane, tapping that inside wall in Novell chicane.
He did.
And they have backed out of their lap.
Thank you for that, Harry. Sorry, somebody was at the door. Invalidation for IRTC as he moves out of the way of IRT Boom as he comes in towards Raskas at turn 17. Back onto the throttle, easing off through the right and left, in towards Anthony Nogueras, down towards the pit, straight to the start-finish line. And IRT Boom goes P11. TF10 Sam also coming through sector 2 at the moment in that kick cell, but he's P15 yet to set a lap time. He needs to get one on board here for Sam as we go through the tunnel and down towards the Novell chicane. Can he get this right? This is such a tricky part of the circuit. Onto the brake pedal, keeps it valid, back onto the throw. Beautifully executed from Sam the man. Down through Tabak at turn 12, in towards the swimming pool section, over the apex, into the wall. He's using every inch of this track and more as we go through Raskas and up towards Anthony Nogueras, through turn 19, down towards the line. The kick salvo, full throttle, that rear wing will open, and it is a P10 just in front of his teammate.
Yeah, regarding Sam, is only 4th in this championship. It's not the best of laps there, but then you can say the exact same thing about White Sheep, who's got 2 P2s this season after penalty out in Kota, and they're currently leading the championship, sitting in 8th at the moment, whilst Bill Souza is on an invalidated lap, in fact into the pit lane. So I will go over to Pablo, who is leaving the Monaco tunnel into the Novell chicane, chucks the car left and tries to slingshot it to the right as they work their way up to back now, try and not hit the walls, as they manage to avoid that as they go darting across the Singapore section into the Raskas hairpin, out of that and onto the back straight. I don't know why I called the swimming pool section the Singapore section. Maybe it's a night race, as Pablo very close, in fact spinning off as a result of a Racing Bulls are leaving the pit lane. I believe that was IRT Nick.
Yeah, you've got Benjamin in the Alpine who's gone purple, sector 1. So the Alpine driver has gone quickest of anybody. He's currently in P7, 7/10 of a second behind Kevin Zunneberg, your race winner from the last round in the Circuit of the Americas. But here comes Benjamin out of the tunnel section, down towards the Novell chicane at turn 10. He hits that apex with some force, and my goodness me, how did he keep hold of that with a huge snap of understeer, and he held on for dear life as we come through the swimming pool section, down in towards Raskas at turn 17, keeping it nice and tight to the billboards, back onto the throw to the right hander, and then down towards the start finish line as he comes out of Anthony Nogueras. Where can Benjamin put it? Benjamin goes provisional front row here in Monte Carlo, and that is one incredible lap in Monaco.
Yeah, I was looking at Steve, and he is all over the shop floor, to say the least. He hit the ball, not the ball, the wall in Mirabeau High, and then drifted out of Mirabeau Low. Currently going through Novell chicane. Looks like they've picked up a bit more stability in that Mercedes car. It really does look reluctant to do what the Mercedes driver wants, as you can see, sliding across the swimming pool section onto the brakes into Raskas, getting quite close to the wall again, then snapping on that exit as they work their way up to the line. Not going to be surprised if it's a poor lap they cross, and it's only P9.
You're right, so only P9, you've got Salvo in the Aston Martin who's on a lap, you've got Diogo Silva coming through turn 6, you've got a couple of the drivers, BL Souza in the Haas, currently in P20 on an outlap. Let's ride on board with the P20 driver, the only other driver without a lap time who can set a lap time, out of Sandavota turn 1, up Beau Rivage and towards the Masonette. We are on board with BL Souza. And in the MoneyGram Haas car, round the right-hander at the Casino Square, down towards Mirabeau at turn 5. And not a bad first sector for Souza. And then we had another driver, that was Shadow in the Williams that went up, and that is IRT Nick that has gone provisional pole. The Racing Bull by half a tenth is on a pole position here in PSF2 for the Monaco Grand Prix. Ben in the Alpine goes up to P4 and joins his teammate on the second row of the grid. We go back on board with Souza. What can he do as he comes through to back at turn 12? They've all got very, very nice and acquainted with each other with them billboards. Down in towards Raskas at turn 17. What can Souza do? Up towards Anthony Nogueres, back onto the throttle, keeps it brilliantly executed to perfection, and Souza goes P4 and splits the Alpines. Salvo with a 5-place grid penalty for a collision with TF10 Sam.
Not ideal whatsoever for the driver with that 5 place. It's not what you really want here, as White Sheep chucking it through the swimming pool almost went into the back of an Aston Martin of Salvo, in fact. Then drifting out of Raskas up towards the start finish line. They are going to now go. Can the Haas go to the top? Yes, they will.
Wow.
A very good effort. Only 4 thousandths quicker than RT Nick, however.
That was brilliant, that Harry. White Sheep doing what he does best. He has just been a phenomenon since he's come into the grid here in PSF2 for PSGL, and he is dominating at the moment. He won last week, yes, that was pre-penalties, and Kevin Zonnenberg ended up getting it, but White Sheep looks so quick, and he's right up there at the very top of this grid in the opening 2 rounds, and it looks like he's going to do it again here in Monaco.
Yeah, it really does look like this season is going to be painted Haas or the American flag, which is quite patriotic for the American team, just since they haven't had this domination in almost their whole career in motorsport, whilst White Sheep currently giving him it as if he's Max Verstappen 2.0, whilst Kevin Zonnenberg is on a push lap going through Casino Square now. In fact, not on a push lap anymore, they backed out and probably going to go again, maybe doing another installation lap, which is the better option in these cooler conditions. Of course, Monaco at night, fairly unknown territory.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody knows what the tyre temperatures are going to be like, or the wear, or anything like that. We know that it's a mandatory 2-stop, as you pointed out before, Harry. And this will throw a little spanner in the works for the drivers. And I know the drivers are going to look for that undercut because they're going to want to be in front for the race. But if they go too early, they leave themselves wide open at the end of this race, and that's what you don't want to do, because it is going to be so hard to get your foot down with tyres that are absolutely cooking. So Matthias Gullit in the Aston Martin is improving. He's 2 tenths up as he comes in towards the Nouvelle chicane, down towards to back at turn 12 into the left-hander, rides the wall a little bit there through Louis Chiron into the pool section, down through 15, 16, in towards Raskas at 17, back onto the throttle and into the pit lane. So he's not going to improve at the moment. And Sieb also follows him in, so they're all getting ready for these final pushes, Harry.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Discord chat. Kevin Zonnenberg put out a question mark about a restart for that grid 10 handed to the Aston Martin. It'll be interesting to see what ends up being called as a result, because in all fairness, the Aston Martin did impede Sam, and Booms turned around and said it depends where they qualify. So it may end up being, if they're like pole, then they'll call a restart.
Okay,
otherwise it may not happen, which could be frustrating, especially for Sam, knowing that their qualifying may have now been butchered as a result, as Ivan going quite slowly, currently running none in terms of the ERS mode, but the track's starting to get quite busy. You'll need to find that perfect gap of fresh air to go for push lap, because it's the final 2 minutes. This is what matters. Everything that's been set before could be absolute nonsense come the end of these 2 minutes, as Ivan's about to start their final push.
Yeah, so riding on board with the Williams driver into Zandvoort turn 1. A little tap of the shoulder there onto the wall on the left-hander, and then up the hill in towards turn 3 at the Masonaire, through the casino at turn 4, and then it's such a tricky path. Nobody quite understands when they watch drivers racing around Monaco. They seem to think it's very free-flowing, but the elevations around Monaco are simply remarkable. If you've ever walked the circuit here in Monte Carlo, you will understand when you're having dinner, literally as you are riding through the tunnel now, when you come out of the other end of the tunnel, you will sit on the track and have lunch, and it's so bumpy as you're walking across it, the elevations, the gradients, and it's like speed bumps going down some of the hills as well, and these drivers will feel every single inch of that, and Ivan is just putting it all together. He is 3 tenths up as he comes in towards Raskas, just over 30 seconds remaining here in qualifying for round 3, and he absolutely bombs it out of Anthony Nogueras down towards line. It's a 109.0, and IRT Ivan did improve, but it wasn't enough to make any improvement on track. His teammate just starts his lap. We've got a Ferrari coming through. That is Thiago, who's down on his lap time. He's not going to be able to go again. He's not got the battery. We do have a Mercedes of Sieb just about to start his lap, and then the other Ferrari coming through as well, and all of the drivers getting ready here, Harry.
White Sheep's just gone even quicker than their current quickest lap, with a bit of a tow out of the Aston Martin at the end. It's quite funny to think an Aston Martin impeded one of the current championship contenders, and the other one they've given a tow all the way up the start-finish run. So kind of looks like they want to help the Hasses as best as possible, as qualifying has now ended. Benjamin only 4th quickest, while Ben, well, don't know really what to call him. I'll call him Ben though, as they're heading over line. Zonneberg quickest, and Ben into 3rd.
What a lap that was from Kevin Zonneberg. White Sheep can't improve. Ben in P3, Nick P4, Benjamin P5. You've got a couple of the other drivers coming through. Ivan will not improve. You've got IRTC. We know how good he can be. TF10 Sam went up to P7, so it looks like it will be a restart. Here comes IRTC in the Mercedes down towards line, and he goes P7 just in front of the Kick Sauber. You've got a Ferrari, Ticho, P6, Harry. Wow, this is incredible. The Ferrari coming through right at the end, and Luca will be the last. He's not going to improve. So it is Kevin Zonneberg, the race winner from last week, Harry, who took it away from White Sheep, does it again in qualifying here in Monaco.
Yeah, absolutely pivotal for the championship. There's 4 points difference between 1st and 2nd in the races, so that could be advantage Zonneberg in terms of this championship, especially leaving this race, then going to Austria, 2 very different circuits. This quite close-ended in terms of overtaking opportunities, whereas Austria you can be extremely creative, as here is your grid for the main race. It's Kevin Zonneberg who nabs pole by 14 thousandths of a second over White Sheep. Then it's the leading Alpine, I'm going to call him Ben again. It's 3rd for them with Nick in 4th. Then it's the other Alpine of Ben in 5th. Then it's Tisho in the Ferrari taking home 6th with Souza 7th. Sieb 8th. Sam 9th. Luca 10th. Thiago 11th. Shadow in 12th. Ivan 13th. Mattis 14th. Salvo in 15th. Pablo 16th. Diogo Silva 17th. Boom 18th. And then the 2 McLarens at the back.
Yeah, so it was Salvo with the 5-place grid penalty. He qualified in P14. I'm not sure they'll restart it. We'll have to see.
From what I've seen is Boom has said if no bottom 5, then it's a restart. If it's bottom 5, then it's no restart. But then they're questioning it as I think it's now going to be no restart. Yeah. So that's going to be a minor setback to your start time. Probably add, I don't know, 5 minutes delay.
Yeah.
However, this just feels like real F1, the FIA delaying your race start procedures every now and then. But it's Monaco. I don't think we'll see much of a change with a 5-place grid drop, but we never know.
Yeah, I think if it weren't Monaco, I'm not sure they would have restarted it, but with it being Monaco, it's so hard to overtake that every position counts. So I think that's probably why they've took that decision to do that.
Yeah, like if this was a week on in the future, Austria, they'd probably go, you can get past them all in about 2 laps. We'll let you start in P20. Whereas, it's not as easy. As the lights are up, we'll find out if they truly act on it. I think they have, as an Alpine goes about half a light year too early, and at least they can say they are leading into the first corner, whilst Zunderberg, White Sheep and Max Bobbins in the first corner. Numerous DNFs. Safety car, I believe, should be out in a moment's time. Currently only a VSC, as we started with 20. We've only got 7. So that's been an amazing start here in Monaco. That's now dropped to 5. Make it 2, now 1. As Salvo, unexpectedly, the last to DNF here today. I think we should just end the event and give them the 16 points now.
So give Salvo the victory here.
Yeah, sounds fair. Drags Aston Martin all the way into it. They're currently on 15 points in this championship, whereas the Williams team only on 28. As far as I'm aware, so
yeah,
could slingshot this Aston Martin straight into this championship and really give us a run for their monies. I've just seen Tristan in the chat saying White Sheep to F1. That is quite a fair thing to say, because let's admit, White Sheep is much quicker than the others. Maybe even Kevin Zunderberg, he's up there, but White Sheep, when they don't have a mistake, like saw in that very end stage of qualifying, could probably get pole by a good 2 attempts.
Yeah, I think when the same driver is getting pole position on multiple different tracks, I think that's when the talk has to happen, because what you want is different drivers being stronger at different tracks because of how close they are. But ultimately, there's one driver being strong at every track in front of everybody else at the moment.
Yeah, however, you can argue at Belgium, White Sheep, 10th place. So, maybe they found that weak spot. They just need to add Belgium a bit more onto the calendar. Maybe do Belgium every other race. Have White Sheep towards back for them. And then we'll give them somewhere else where White Sheep is in fact quicker. And just go like that. Nice and easy.
That's a good idea, that, Harry. We'll just do that. Just Belgium somewhere else. And just do that for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, it's a very plausible idea. I want a 50 grand pay rise. Yeah. For the idea. But no, seriously, White Sheep just doing absolute miracles and wonders this season so far. But my question to you, it's not who's going to win or anything, but where do you think Snack's going to finish next time they race?
Oh, I don't know. It's I don't know, because he's shown glimmers, and then every time he's had that glimmer, he's sort of fell back down a little bit, come back down to earth. So he's just got to put it into a nice little run now. Oh, we'll see.
Yeah, what I brought up last week was what ended up happening. I said he was P3 in Australia, P4 in Belgium, and then I said that he'd come P5 in Kota. He came home P5. So maybe I think next time they race, they'll come P6.
Well, if that happens, then yeah,
Be a very
he'd want to
consistent line.
He'd want to be moving forward, not backwards. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I think all drivers do, but then when it's so close, especially behind White Sheep, it's quite difficult to go forwards in that sense, because one race you'll go P2, the next you'll be P10.
Yeah.
And you'll just come and go like that, because Zonneberg, he's only had one podium this season, and that came last time out. He was 6th in Australia and then 13th in Belgium. Yes, this is a very factual lecture you're getting from me today. And then also for Zane, he got a podium out in Belgium, looked really strong there. P10 in Kota and P14 in the season opener. Just shows that form really has to be determined by consistency rather than what you can do at one track rather than the other. And that's what White Sheep and Snack currently have, hence why they are the top 2 in the championship.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there, Harry. So, we should be getting back underway shortly.
Yeah.
Just having a look now. There we go. So, the drivers...
One thing I do hope is that there are more overtakes in this than in the real life Monaco.
Yeah.
Just because we know that quite well. Not really too keen on overtaking there. But hopefully these drivers, we've seen they've got the balls to do it, especially last week in the rain. They were throwing it at one another, almost like they were all having a hissy fit about the weather and the track. They were just relentlessly going for dive bombs everywhere as they were trying to scrap for traction. And I'm just hoping that's the same today. Either that, or do like a reversed Monaco race.
Yeah, reverse Monaco race.
Again, another 100 grand pay rise, please.
Yeah. This is going to be absolute carnage at the start, Harry. This is going to be something else. Well, I can feel it in my bones. I can feel it in my bones. It's going to kick off. We're going to have a big riot on the corner of Sandivot. Everybody's going to be up there with the flyers, and everybody's going to have a bird's eye view from the yacht, and it's just going to kick off like crazy. Oh my goodness me! If we thought Monaco was bad, it's just got a whole lot worse, Harry.
Yeah, monsoon conditions. Only things you'd see in Singapore, but clearly we've made a little bit of PSGL magic come to life and have it happen in Monaco.
Thanks, Salvo. Oh, God.
But if we thought that first start was bad when we knew there was going to be a restart, I think it'll be much worse now there's rain involved and there won't be a restart.
It's going to be so hard for these drivers.
Sam's just asked, do we still need to do 2 stops? The answer's yes. It's a mandated 2 stop at Monaco. So yeah.
Yeah.
Strategy's going to kick in.
This has thrown a real spanner in the works now. A real spanner. I think the drivers are sort of questioning themselves and what is about to happen.
Yeah, what we said earlier was the shorter the stint at the start, the better. Now it's the longer the stint at the start, the better. Because you're better with that tyre delta on the inters and wets.
Yeah.
Whereas on the dries, you're better with track position. So I do think some people are going to try and extend that first stint as long as possible, maybe go 12 odd laps, and then try and go for another 14 lap stint. Just so then they have like 10 laps at the very end, where they can go to the end on it.
So some of the drivers are just talking about their strategies here and what they're planning, what the plan is with the rain. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure half of them know what to do. So yeah, Luca, as you said, Harry, if you do a one-stop, the game will DSQ you. It is still a mandatory two-stop. Regardless of the weather, it is a mandatory two-stop, as Harry pointed out.
I'm guaranteeing you someone's going to do the one.
Yeah.
And then
Just get DSQ'd.
Yeah. But then I'm pretty sure there's an announcement somewhere in this server saying whatever happens, Monaco's a two-stop.
Yeah.
So, the drivers should be fully aware.
You know what, though, Harry? This is great, I think, for the likes of the pole sitter and the front row, because the undercut isn't going to be nowhere near as strong in the rain as it would have been in the dry. So they might...
stronger, but then it'll be weaker in the long run.
See, because of the pace of the drivers, I don't think you're going to get much of a difference as you would in dry. But yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, what we saw out in Kota was the moment you pit, you find about 2 seconds a lap on car ahead due to the tyre degradation. But then once they pitted, they start finding half a second on your lap. You lose about 2 tenths to half a second a lap on the intermediates. They just burn out on this game. So here, yes, go longer because you'll be quicker.
Yeah.
In the short, like across your next stint. But then if you want to be ahead and quicker periodically, go for that earlier stop, gain track position, then try and fend off, because Monaco is notoriously known for the difficulty in overtaking. But yeah, we'll find out what the drivers end up doing in a matter of moments' time, as Boom has just said we can ready to Kevin. So yeah, we're about to go underway. So
we are going to get ready. Buckle up, everybody, because you're about to see a rainy Monaco Grand Prix here in PSGL for PSF2. And this is going to be one hell of a race. So... yeah, it doesn't look like anyone wants to ready yet, though. No. I haven't heard that game countdown have a hissy fit on my controller. Here we go. This is it. It is 5 red lights here in Monaco for PSGL, and it is lights out and away we go. White Sheep did get a good start down in towards turn 1 at Sandivor. The Red Bull and the Haas. White Sheep, and it is. Yes, it is White Sheep that has been overtaken, but the order is not in the correct order at the moment. It is Kevin Zunneberg, and my timing screen saying he's down in P20, but he's not. He is your race leader as we go in towards Casino Square. Ben in the Alpine is in P2. Then we have, White Sheep in P2, Ben in P3, Nick in P4. That is Sousa and Benjamin going at it, the Alpine and the Haas into the slowest part of the circuit. Goes up the inside, smashes into the Subaru, loses the rears. Some drivers are on wet, some are on intermediates. What is going on here under the lights in Monte Carlo, Harry? Yeah, I don't know, but the game's corrected itself, at least with Kevin Zunneberg. They've flown away, but I'm not really too sure. Some drivers, of course, think the Inters are just as quick as the Wets, as they are very much struggling to get the traction in the chicane. Sousa going off and getting 3 seconds on the first strike, as there's contact back there between Zane and Boom, maybe even Christian. I can't tell what McLaren's what. They're just so similar in terms of their performance, as it really just shows that it's a minefield of trying to get that right traction zone, because it's so difficult on these wet tyres. You can see the front runners sliding around as Nick is in the pit on the opening lap, as the Alpine and P3 just struggling to hold on to the likes of White Sheep and Zunneberg, but at the same time those on full wets struggling to keep up with that Alpine as well. So it's quite contradictory. I'm surprised that we've seen so many drivers start on wets. I'm going to be completely honest. I did not expect to see so many drivers start on the wets. Well, Kevin Zunneberg is leading, then you got White Sheep, and then Ben, and that is Sicho. Ticcio in the Ferrari that is off the track, and you do not want to dwindle down the order here in Monaco like that, down in towards P10, and that is awful news for the Maranello outfit of Ticcio. Thiago overtook him and moved up to P8. There's some of the drivers, that is Christian on the back of Boom. They go wheel to wheel. The McLaren on the Aston Martin of Matthias Gully. Christian cannot get through. The Aston Martin gets the better exit on the intermediate tyres through the tunnel section. He's not going to be able to close up through there as the rain is not bouncing off the track underneath. Down in towards the Novel chicane at turn 10 and 11. Back onto the throttle. And it is an action-packed Monaco. I cannot believe I'm saying that, Harry.
Yeah, this is much better than real life. However, Nick and Seb both pitted on that opening lap. Nick's already within 5 seconds of P18, just showing how much time they've all lost trying to fight each other, while Seb 10 seconds further back trying to get some work in, as quite a few of those on the start, those who started on full wets, into the pits now. Boom, Mattis and Christian all making that change to the intermediates, and we are only 3 laps in now.
Wow.
Just showing how weak those full wets are, even though I had those possible strategies pop up on last lap, and all strategies did not mention a singular bit about those intermediates. So it's interesting to see how those drivers are hating those full wets, as they are taking various lines, trying to find the wet patches, trying to find the grip, and most importantly, trying to get back into the rhythm, because Sam 6 seconds off the top 3.
Yeah, so White Sheep on the back of Kevin Zonderberg still. Yeah, I seen a race earlier this season, and a lot of the drivers, I think it might have been Singapore in the rain actually, and a lot of the drivers made the same mistake and started on wets, and for some reason this game just doesn't benefit you at all when you start on wets in treacherous conditions. The intermediates always seem to be that little bit quicker, no matter if it's a monsoon condition. So we will see these intermediate tyres surely come into play, like Ben in the Alpine, but White Sheep still trying to attack on the back of Kevin Zonderberg. That is Ben in the Alpine that sets the fastest lap. Benjamin and Thiago both into the pit lane, so they're getting their pit stops. TRT Zane also joins them down the pit lane, so they are getting them out of the way. Yeah, the wets are faster for a couple of laps, but not many at all. Not many at all. So,
I'm not too sure really, because Zonderberg and White Sheep managing their gap over Ben in the Alpine, who's on the Inters, could have just gone to the full wets to get rid of a pit stop. Think about it in that strategical sense. There's now 1 stop left to make in this race rather than the 2.
yeah.
But then in the long run, you're forfeiting 19-20 seconds in the opening few laps. Safety car comes out, not saying it will, and then the likes of Zonderberg and White Sheep can get their stop done, and they've lost more than they've gained.
Yep. And TF10 Sam is up to P4. He's 7 seconds behind Ben. He's 1.7 in front of Souza. That is a yellow flag, and I'm trying to figure out who that was. I can't see any action on track.
It was for Boom. I think it was just due to how slow the cars were going through the hairpin, because it is so difficult to get that grip and get the throttle pin down. You're almost crawling through there. As Ben is in the pits. That's interesting, because we thought the wets were the weaker tyres, and then Sam also into the pits. Could it literally just be
from wing damage?
Can't run 4 laps. But then Sam, Tishu and Souza all in. I think that's all wing damage as well. Is it worth pitting for wing damage in this race though? Because it's such a high downforce track, you lose a bit of your front wing. All that it does is it makes it a bit more difficult to turn in. Apart from that, nothing. As you can see, Ben has caught right up to Ben and Sam, the Alpine alongside Imbo Ravage, and up into P9. A very good move in a very classy way.
And now TF10 Sam is going to try his luck on Benjamin as they come through the casino. Can the Sauber get his foot down and attack? That is Nick on Pablo. Pablo moves out of the way, the Mercedes driver. And IRT Nick picking up the pieces. That is Ticho and Tiago, the two Scuderias. One of them goes deep. And Tiago will have to just hold the line from IRT Sieb behind as Ticho just gathers his thoughts after that mistake earlier on in the race that dropped him down. I say earlier on in the race. It feels like we've been going for a while. We're only 5 laps in. The rain is beginning to dwindle away. The track is beginning to dry out. What are we going to see by the end of this Grand Prix? That is White Sheep into the pit lane. He's going for the undercut on Kevin Zunderberg. Is Salvo going to stay out in the Aston Martin? He does. Kevin Zunderberg sets the fastest lap, so he's not going slow by any means. Shadow in the Williams is into the pit lane. Luca is going down the pit straight. He's going to stay out, but where is White Sheep going to come? Is he going to be in traffic? He is not. He is clear as day, or in the night here in Monaco, as White Sheep moves through, and he will just blast out them lap times now and get that undercut on Kevin Zunderberg. Surely, Harry.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure what's on their minds. Is it literally the Inters can't go more than 6 laps? Because if you think about it, practically everyone but 4 drivers have pitted so far, and we're only on lap 6. So is it everyone just picking up wing damage? And it's been a field day for that, as White Sheep driving that Haas car like it's a rally car through the Monaco hairpin.
Well, as I was saying prior to the race start, Harry, I thought that all of the drivers would start to try and make a really, really quick undercut, and then so that they would go to the back of the grid, clear air, and just start banging out laps on some fresh tyres. Even though they weren't going to be that fresh, they would be quicker and potentially make up moves, because the tyres, they're only like 20% after 6 laps, so they can go a long time, but the drivers are pitting early to get the undercut because they know they're not going to be overtaken down the line because of how long the tyres last in these conditions. So I don't think the drivers are that worried. I think about losing position. I think they're just worried about gaining positions due to undercuts, and they're trying to go as early as possible here. I could be completely wrong though, Harry.
Yeah, I'm still just bedazzled. You can just hear me every single time I talk. I'll just bring up my confusion about it because Luca's pitted again. Zunderberg setting the fastest lap. Never mind, Nick has just made me swallow my words again. But it looks practically bang identical in terms of what's quicker, the full wets or the inters. Is it that crossover? Or is it just genuinely those full wets being quick enough, as White Sheep sets 8 tenths improvement in that first sector? They're still driving that like it's on ice skates as they are trying to size up a move on Salvo. Could they maybe salvage a P2 and then continue to hunt down Zunderberg up ahead? We'll find out as they work to the Novell chicane now. A bit too far back, so I wouldn't expect anything there, which White Sheep, of course, chose not to do.
Yeah, White Sheep's going to want to try and disperse it will want to try and disperse of Salvo as quickly as possible. Here he comes. Salvo could potentially hold him up. White Sheep is not going to want this. He's going to have to try and get through on this Aston Martin as quickly as possible. That is Ben on Pablo. Pablo moves through. There goes Benjamin as well. His teammate, the 2 Alpines, just sandwich the Mercedes driver. That is White Sheep. Salvo's into the pit lane. White Sheep has been released down the pit straight, and off he goes to catch Kevin Zunderberg. The Alpines of Ben and Benjamin. Pablo still holding on in the middle of that Alpine sandwich. Out of Anthony the gears. Back onto the throttle we go. Shadow, Sam, Ticho all joining the action. And that is Salvo that dwindles down the grid. He will come out just in front of Tiago. No, he won't. He comes out just behind Tiago, but he'll go up the pit lane exit. And just off the track, he goes wheel to wheel with Tiago, but he is through. And Benjamin in the Alpine also makes the move on that Mercedes AMG driver, and he's up to P5. Salvo with them fresh tyres straight out the pit lane gets in front of IRT Sieb.
Yeah, Sam just had a look there on Pablo, but one thing I was keeping an eye on was Zunderberg's and White Sheep's first sectors, and it's about 2.5 tenths in the advantage of the Haas. If my math stands correct, it probably didn't, because I saw both sectors for about a flash second and then they were gone. However, it does look like the Inters currently have that advantage. You can even see a Zunderberg into the pits after the gap dropped by about 3 seconds in the first 2 sectors, he knew he was losing out on White Sheep, so he had to cover his back as best as he could.
Yeah, if I was Kevin Zonnenberg's engineer, I would have been screaming down the microphone to get him into the pit lane. White Sheep sets the fastest lap. Kevin Zonnenberg is going to come out probably 5 or 6 seconds behind White Sheep here. This is a massive undercut from the Haas driver. IRT Nick is even on his way down. This is remarkable. Yeah, Kevin Zonnenberg 7.2 seconds behind White Sheep. And that is a hugely advantageous undercut there from White Sheep in the Haas.
Yeah, brilliant undercut, but then admittedly it's been 3 laps as Gullit has retired in the pit lane. The Aston Martin out of the race now, only meaning one of them has got an opportunity to score points. It's a shame because I did want them to give 16 points to Salvo after that Demolition Derby take 1. Unfortunately we didn't get that, and now they are very much suffering in 11th and a DNF at the moment.
Yes, you are right. We're just watching this midfield pack. They're getting very scrappy. They are trying to just force their way through on each other. A very tasty little battle. The Sauber goes deep into the back. Oh, Pablo, they collide again. Pablo picks up a warning. Shadow is going to try and make the move into the right-hand side. He gets squeezed into the wall. The Sauber stays in front. The Ferrari is back in on the action. The Williams with a magnificent undercut. He's nearly into the wall. Sam holds on. Pablo is now clear of the action. And that was very scary there as Shadow nearly ended in the Shadow realms.
Yeah, absolute miracle work there as the 2 Ferraris almost ended up tripping up on one another, just like they do in reality. However, what I could be bringing up, Mercedes may or may not resort to doing so, but if you remember to earlier this year in real life, quite a few real life references since it's Monaco, Williams, P9 and P10, weren't they?
And they held up everybody.
Yeah, just so then the other one could undercut and jump. Could Pablo be that one doing the overcut, holding everyone up and allowing Sieb to jump through with a 1 or 2 lap undercut? Could be worth it.
It could indeed. I think you're right. We might see a few games like this during the end. We've still got 29 laps to go, and I think you're absolutely spot on, Harry. I think we'll see so much more team games and strategies going in and out. As Pablo has gone deep again. Sam will try and move on through. The Sauber is through this time. So is Shadow. Pablo tries to cut off Ticho. He goes up the inside and Pablo's lost 3 places. He is not putting up a fight. Does he have damage? But he is not putting up a fight this time around. Thiago is there. Salvo, Sieb all chasing down that Mercedes driver, but the others are way clear already. Sam coming in towards Anthony Nogueras. The Sauber driver in P6. Shadow all over the rear diffuser of the Sauber in front, down in towards Sandoval. Is he going to go for the move? He doesn't. He just pulls out.
Yeah, maybe the Mercedes weren't going to hold up everyone, because it really doesn't look like anything longer than 8 laps, and the tyres just deplete as up through Beau Rivage is going to be through Massenet. Shadow pushing the Sauber around.
They've collided.
That's unfortunate as there's Sieb going around the outside of Pablo. And that is now the leading Mercedes, very much the secondary Mercedes, as you can just see Pablo having no pace whatsoever. Zane round the outside of the hairpin, ended up trying to flick that rear end round, didn't work whatsoever. Zane pushes him into a wall, as someone's just asked me about 7 times to join a Discord call. That is not an option, cause Salvo almost sent Sieb out, just like I'm going to kick that person out of that group.
Sorry, so we ride on board with Shadow, who is just in front of Ticho and Thiago, but the scrappiness of the drivers behind. Souza on the back of Zane, Sieb, Salvo, Kevin Zunderberg 10.8 seconds behind White Sheep. White Sheep has gone to another stratosphere again here, and he is still opening up that gap. And Kevin Zunderberg is actually on fresher tyres, but he's lost 4 seconds. So he's got to have made a mistake somewhere, or White Sheep is definitely ready for that jump up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to track one car, but the moment one car finishes trying to make an attempt on another car, there's someone else, so it's almost impossible to track what's going on. As Shadow, again, shoving Sam round the hairpin, the Williams, getting quite desperate, starting to get rather eager to try and make that move done, because T-Show is behind him, and Tiago is slowly starting to chip at that advantage once again. More than anything, they're all just holding each other up in this race and allowing those ahead to pull away, such as those Alpines, sitting quite unanimously in 4th and 5th.
So that is incredible. White Sheep has opened up another 2-second gap to Kevin Zunderberg and set the fastest lap of this Grand Prix. Oh, and that is a Mercedes that's into the wall. That is Pablo, who comes out of the Nobel chicane, clatters into the wall and drops down into P18 with a missing end plate. And that will be Grand Prix over surely now for Pablo. There's no coming back here in Monaco. Christian, Diogo Silva, Luca, they're all very closely. Here comes Salvo on Tiago. Ivan picks up a time penalty. Salvo in the Aston Martin gets a good exit. He's going to nip up the inside of the Scuderia, and the Scarlet Ferrari glistening under the LED lights here in Monte Carlo. The Aston Martin not giving him an inch though. Wheel to wheel through turn 4 of the casino section. The Ferrari stays ahead. It's getting very tense between the pair of them, and the Ferrari stays in front. The Aston Martin will try the old switcheroo down in towards turn 6 of the slowest section of any track on any calendar, and it is the Scuderia that stays ahead.
That was a bit too close for Tiago's liking. You could just see how much pressure the Aston Martin was putting on that Ferrari. However, one thing I'm surprised about is Pablo without a puncture. You've seen how much he struggled on those inters. You'd be surprised that incident in the Nobel chicane didn't burst one of those tyres, but he's still powering on like a soldier with 12 lap old inters. Yeah,
the see, my timing says the inters are very good at the moment. They're not at all wearing down, like 22, 24, 25% on the 12 lappers, 9 lappers and 10 lappers. But the drivers seem to really be at a massive disadvantage. The thing that I am really concerned about is the fact that White Sheep's tyres are 3 laps older than Kevin Zunderberg, yet he's opened up the gap by 6 seconds since Kevin Zunderberg pitted, and he's faster on every lap, and he's setting fastest laps on 8 lap old intermediates. He's just notched it up another gear. It's like he's gone, right, it's time to perform a little bit now, and just absolutely gone for it.
Yeah, almost everyone I'm looking at is setting personal best sectors. So it's clear that the track is dry. You can also see that the hairpin is rather dry, I'll be honest. You can see a visible dry line. Maybe that's just how many times the car's gone round it, but it does look quite dry. And then of course the tunnel, it's covered, so of course that's going to be dry. However, White Sheep, another fastest lap.
Yeah.
You're just constantly seeing the track ramping up. I don't think he'll go to the dries. However, you can see that there's still downpour, but the downpour very much has dropped compared to when we were just sitting there talking pre-race.
Yeah, you're right. It was absolutely chucking it down at the start. Not so much now. It's sort of calmed down, and in fact, it actually looks like it's very close to stopping. And as you said, the evolution around the track has dried up massively, and it's started to progress and speed up and get quicker and quicker. And as you noted, the drivers setting personal bests all throughout the track. On board with Phoenix, who chases down TF10 Sam in that kick Sauber, and then you have Ticho, Tiago, Salvo, and Seb, Zane, Souza, Boom, and Diogo, Christian, Luca, Pablo, and Ivan. But it is White Sheep that leads by 14.5 seconds here in Monaco. The undercut for White Sheep was massive, and then Kevin Zunneberg then pitted to go onto fresh tyres and has gone even slower. He has now lost 8 seconds since pitting, has Kevin Zunneberg on White Sheep.
Something's just happened to White Sheep, because that gap just plummeted by 9/10 is all I can say. There's been a big moment. I think it may have been Saint Devote. However, White Sheep set the fastest lap 16 seconds clear. 5 seconds later it's 15.1, and now slowly creeping back up towards 15.5. So White Sheep clearly has that advantage, but a big mishap in that first sector it looks like.
Yeah, so we're on board with Shadow. Oh, what about Salvo on Tiago as they come out of Sandoval up the hill? But the Ferrari just gets such a better exit. We're on lap 16 of 39. Remember, if you do want the perfect sim racing setup here in PSGL, make sure you check them out at simracingsetups.com. Use code PSGL on checkout for a 5% discount. They do setups for F1, iRacing, Assetto Corsa, you name it, they got it. Go and get your sim racing setups from them and use code PSGL on checkout. We're riding on board here in PSF2. Salvo in the Aston Martin. White Sheep with another fastest lap. He's around a second and a half quicker than Kevin Zunneberg on every single lap, even with the tyre disadvantage. Yes, you heard that right. It's a tyre disadvantage for White Sheep, but he's going quicker than Kevin Zunneberg at everything. So down in towards Rascas we go at turn 17. Sam holds on in the Sauber. The Williams is all over his tail, all over that rear wing. They come through Anthony Nogueras at turn 19. Back onto the throttle. This is the closest Shadow's been. Can he finally get the move done down in towards Sandoval? He cannot.
Yeah, Shadow very much being Sam Shadow in this race, or at least cast over as they fight up through Beaurivage. The Williams almost alongside there, instead going to be the wiser driver and just settle in for P7 again. Surely P6 will be theirs anytime soon. As you can just see, they are really trying to attack that bump. It's a very awkward bump as well as you head down towards Mirabeau High. It is quite off camber. That's why so many drivers weave on that straight, just so they don't go airborne off and end up finding themselves where Nico Rosberg ended up parking the car back in about 2015, I think it was.
Yeah. So we've stayed on board with Shadow for quite a while as he narrows down that gap. Shadow's going to get him in the next few laps. Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think he's just waiting for that opportunity to get just about close enough to go for the move. Here we go. This is it from Shadow on Sam. He's going to take a wider line so he can get a better exit. He will compromise the entrance for the exit. There we go, back onto the throttle, but the Sauber, he was a bit slicker through there, but then on the exit, the Williams driver, but he wasn't nowhere near close enough to try and get that move done this time around. We've got Boom and Christian into the pit lane for their final stops here in Monaco, so they are going to go for that big undercut. So back on board. Yeah, Harry, we're going back on board with Shadow and Sam.
Yeah, it's hard compound tyres is all I can say. Boom, Christian and Pablo all on the hard compound tyres. I don't think it's a dry track. You probably, of course, heard me as you were last talking, going, it's hard. Just because I don't think it's a dry track whatsoever. You can see as Sam and Shadow go out of Mirabeau Low, quite a bit of downpour by the French coastline, as it really doesn't look like it's going to be anywhere near a dry track anytime soon. It'll be quite interesting to see if those three can survive and navigate a lap successfully. As Sam bracing against the barrier, he's struggling enough on the intermediates. Imagine those on the hards. They'll be driving as if they're on skates. As, talking about Sam, it's Shadow on the outside. This is perfect opportunity. A bit of contact as they go rally driving up into the final corner. It's T-Show who's going to try and do a switcheroo on the exit. They'll go racing up towards Saint Devote. It's T-Show on the inside of Shadow, and they are going to fight while Sam guides him along, almost pulling him up through Beaurivage. But T-Show has now capitalised on Shadow, who has very much ended up being caught off by surprise.
Yeah, that was an incredible overtake from Thiago. I think Shadow definitely deserved the move on Sam. It was a little bit sketchy. Sam knew that Shadow was going to try the old switchback out of Anthony Nogueira's, and he basically slowed the car down to avoid him switching it back, and so that he went into the back of it. Shadow wasn't able to deal with that. He wasn't able to read it, and Ticho did, and Ticho absolutely smashed it going up the hill. White Sheep is back into the pit lane after being 18 and a half seconds clear. So what can Shadow do now? Ticho is all over the back of Sam. Is he going to get the opportunities? Kevin Zunderberg is also into the pit lane. So after 18 and a half seconds, they're both pitting at the same time. Benjamin and Ben in the Alpine setting fastest laps.
White Sheep and Kevin both on the hards as well. So they must think it's dry enough. There's something we aren't seeing that clearly they are. As Sam into the pit, so is T-Show and Shadow. I'd assume they're all going to the hards as well, since that is the direction the leaders are going on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm surprised to see hards, but these drivers will know the feeling of the track. They will see something that we're not seeing. That is Pablo that's into the wall. DRS enabled. My goodness, Harry. The rain has stopped.
Yeah, I'm looking at the onboards, and all of a sudden it stopped over the last 2 laps, which is quite bedazzling again. However, they can go to the hards and take them to the end. That means they don't have to worry about strategy anymore. However, these drivers, they had to pick their setups at the start of the race. How did they pick them? Because of course you have wet and dry setups and a mixed setup for this game if you're a typical esports driver like all these lot are. That surely most of them would have picked that mixed setup, so then they'll be fine in the whole race as a whole. But has one, maybe Kevin Zunderberg, who you could see plummeting down the field when White Sheep undercut, could Zunderberg have been on a slightly more dry setup to try and come back in this secondary phase of the race? Or is he just struggling for pace and White Sheep is on a mixed setup being perfect?
Oh, Pablo's out. Oh, in the pit lane. Sorry, yeah, Pablo out in the pit lane. A couple more drivers. Pit Salvo, Zane and TF10 Sam all in the pits. And yeah, you were right. Pretty much right about all that, Harry. And then I still cannot get over how quickly the track dried up. Like, the rain stopped and it was like literally DRS enabled, off you go. And I think that's why we've seen drivers go onto the hard compound tyres whilst it was still raining, because the track was just so dry. Even though there was rain coming down, the track was still really dry underneath them. Oh, and that's the Williams of Shadow that goes into the wall, and Ticho's out. Safety car. Is it a safety car? It's a VSC.
Yeah, T-Show out. You can even see the cars massively reduced in speed. And now, for Ben and Seb, this is a blessing in disguise. Because Ben could probably come out ahead of Kevin, and Seb could probably come out ahead of Sam, because typically it's 22 seconds for a pit stop in a typical event in racing conditions. When it comes to safety car conditions, it's about 10 seconds. So Benjamin leaving the pit lane, he's now ahead of Kevin Zunderberg.
That is remarkable. Benjamin is in P2 on fresh tyres by 5.5 seconds to Kevin Zunderberg. That virtual safety car could not have come at a better time if they tried. Diogo Silva gets a drive-through time penalty. The Portuguese driver in the Red Bull will have to serve it. Seb is into the pit lane. The VSC went in, so he wouldn't have benefited as much as some of the other drivers. And Sam does move on through. We got a little battling at the back. That is Christian. Diogo Silva goes for his drive-through just in case the safety car comes out. He will want to get it out of the way. And Souza chasing down Salvo, but the gap's starting to open up now, Harry.
Yeah, I was looking at Seb and Thiago. Thiago pushed so much, they went straight into the wall. Insane to vote. We almost saw a secondary Ferrari out of this race within a lap of one another, as Diogo Silva 10 seconds for exceeding pit exit and then cutting the first corner. Of course, once you do one, you can't do the other, so if you cross that yellow line on your pit exit, you must resort to the racetrack. Otherwise, you're cutting that first corner. Since you've left the pit lane officially, you're now on a live racetrack. Then you cut the corner. It says slam bang 20 seconds. Don't know what they can really do to argue it.
Yeah, you're right. So, Ben in the Alpine sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So the track definitely getting better for these drivers. You've got TRT Zane in the McLaren, right on the back of Thiago. Can the McLaren do anything about that Scuderia in front? Up towards turn 19 and Anthony Noguez down in towards the slipstream of that Scarlet Ferrari onto the throttle, but that Ferrari driver of Thiago way too quick in towards San Devoto at turn 1, and the McLaren not able to chance a move at the moment. The gap is only 3 tenths, and you've got Salvo on the back of his teammate of Christian, and Luca now setting the fastest lap. Let's have a look and see what Salvo can do in the Aston Martin down in towards the casino at turn 4, and you have the half of Sousa chasing them down behind as well.
Yeah, White Sheep fastest lap there first of all, but then you can just see a lot more colliding with the barrier. There's Christian in fact sliding from that rear into the hairpin. That's going to heat up those rears quite nicely. However, quite a few cars banging against the same barriers one after the other. It's almost like they're relearning the track. Of course, they've been driving a wet track since lap 1, and now it's all of a sudden dry. All of a sudden they're on the hards. They have to in a way relearn that track because they've adapted that muscle memory in the first 22 laps of driving as if it's a wet track. Now it's dry. They have to relearn that and get back into that groove. So expect maybe one car finding the wall at some point and maybe making it fatal.
Yeah, so Salvo 3 tenths of a second behind Christian in the McLaren. Here comes Salvo, the Aston Martin driver down the inside, slides into the wall. The McLaren is back on him. Here comes the Haas. The Aston Martin nearly pulled off the perfect move, but he couldn't make it stick. Christian is through. Nick in the Racing Bull is out. It's another VSC. How has Nick ended his Grand Prix here? But the Racing Bull is out here in Monte Carlo.
I believe it was he clipped the wall on the entry of the Novell, spun the car, slammed into the wall. But then I hate to say that I called it literally about 30 seconds beforehand. Didn't I?
You did. It was just a great call, Harry. You were reading the race. That's exactly what was going on.
Yeah, I now sincerely apologise to Nick, since that is of course throwing quite hefty points away for the Racing Bulls driver, who is 7th in this championship and 9 points off White Sheep entering the race. That's going to be a further 16 back afterwards. As we are back underway, Luca drive-through penalty for speeding under the VSC, while Steve looking quite comfortable behind Shadow, DRS and Battery in full deployment as they try to see if there's an opportunity to overtake into the first corner. They won't make a lunge there, but there's so many opportunities around this track.
Here comes Salvo and Christian. Sorry, Harry. Salvo and Christian again is going for that move up the inside. They did touch. He's all over the back of him as they go up the hill. Sorry to cut you off there, Harry.
That's fine. I was just rounding up there, so all good. As Salvo and Christian pushing down the hill. As there's Salvo making a lunge to the inside, barging Christian out wide, and therefore going by. Christian lobbing it back. He's not happy with that. He's going to retaliate. They're both fighting like it's the last lap of a championship decider, but this time it'll be Salvo who wins this quote-unquote championship decider, as Shadow has found a similar fate to Nick. He's crashed in Novell chicane. Luckily it's not a VSC this time, but Zane 3 seconds, Salvo also 3 seconds for cutting that chicane in evasive action. Christian to the inside of Salvo, lovely move through to back, and that's the McLaren back up into P10.
Yeah, that is the Aston Martin and the McLaren are being so aggressive with each other. Of Christian and Salvo, that's a yellow flag. So Sieb is out in the pit lane as well. So that makes it.
Just crashed as well.
Ivan in the race, in the Williams. Sorry.
Yeah, he crashed in Novell as well. So that's 2 Williams out in the same corner. within the span of a lap. That's just unfortunate to say the least. Luca lost about 7 odd seconds as well in the process. They had to full on stop in the middle of the track just because they had nowhere to go, and if they went off would have got a penalty. They've now retired, meaning we have 12 left here today.
Yeah, only 12 drivers left. It's what we were expecting here in Monaco, just not this way though. Here comes the McLaren of TRT Zane on the back of Thiago, down in towards the Nobel chicane. The Ferrari cuts in front, the McLaren goes into the back of him, back onto the front we go. Papaya versus Scuderia. Here comes the orange into the red, and he gets a really good entrance, but the Ferrari is ahead and the McLaren pulls out.
That was some great racing between the two, but you can also see a bit further back it's now Sousa versus Salvo rather than Salvo versus Christian. It almost looks like that McLaren has now got back into that rhythm a bit, as Sousa had a big snap out of the final corner as Thiago and Zane almost ended up fighting up through Beau Rivage. But this time, boom, on the back, trying to take to the outside, heading up towards Casino Square. No move made between them.
So, IRT Boom being in P8, that's a really good Grand Prix for IRT Boom to be in P8, and he's still well in it. So, Ben in the Alpine, the two Alpines, P2 and P4, one of them setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix as they come out of Anthony Laguerre. It's Ben that is chasing down Kevin Zonenberg. White Sheep is 17 seconds clear with 11 laps to go. He will not be caught today unless something drastic happens. He will be getting that race victory once more here in Monte Carlo. So we do ride on board with the Alpine of Ben. He's chasing down Kevin Zonenberg through Casino at turn 4, down the hill, down the bumpy hill towards turn 5. But Kevin Zonenberg doing enough in the Oracle Red Bull just to fend off any sort of attack from Ben behind.
Yeah, touching up on what you said about the Alpines, they're currently 9th in the Constructors, 1 point ahead of 10th. 5 points behind of 8th. With the points they're scoring currently today, if things were to end how they are, they'd be leaving this race with over double what they had entering this race. So they'll be leaving it on 30, they're entering it on 10. That is a big gain for the Alpine team, could skyrocket them up to the top end, especially against Williams, who's on 28. Williams will in fact be behind Alpine if things were to end this way, purely due to their double DNF here.
Yep, spot on. So Ben will chase down Kevin Zonenberg to try and get a couple more extra points, and you've got IRT Boom on Thiago, the Ferrari of Thiago just holding on. His teammate of Ticho is out of the Grand Prix. We've only got 2 McLarens still in the race, 2 Hasses, 2 Alpines. The rest are all single races. So in towards Anthony Laguerre at turn 19. Here comes IRT Boom, and he just slips out the rears, and he wasn't able to get the pace that he wanted down in towards Saint-Devot. And it's such a struggle for IRT Boom when he came out of that turn 19. He's going up the hill, he's closing down the gap, but every time they come out of a corner, Thiago is just quicker to the throttle.
Sousa's just lobbed it to the inside on Salvo. Amazing move by the Haas. And they very much managed to seize the opportunity against the Aston Martin. That's now P10 for the Haas driver.
So good stuff from the Haas on the Aston Martin. What about Ben again? He is still closing that gap on Kevin Zonenberg. 2 seconds, sorry, I just need a drink.
No, that's fine, I'll take over. As Ben versus Zonenberg, they're just staying at a constant 3/10 or whatever as they go up that hill, down through Mirabeau High towards the Monte Carlo Casino hairpin. And again, the gap increasing, but then it just drops again. They are really trying to be picky about where they find time. Of course, they'll be deploying batteries in different manners just to try and gain and lose that advantage to one another into the chicane. Ben right behind Zonneberg, still trying to push along, but nothing is working as of yet. Whilst for Boom, a bit closer than what the Red Bull and the Alpine have been reaching so far. They're going through that hairpin as well. Boom just unable to overtake Tiago, whilst Christian having a snap of oversteer. Whilst of course you guys in chat can't see it, since they're still showing the leading fight. So I'll go back to that for you lot as Kevin Zundberg and Ben going up the hill.
I was just grabbing a drink. So,
yeah.
IRT Boom on the back of Tiago. The Racing Bull on the Ferrari. I get really, after like an hour, I get really bad dry mouth, so I just needed to get a bit of a juice. So, Ben made a bit of a mistake there. He's now a second behind Kevin Zunderberg. I think he went into the wall as he was coming out of turn 7. And then the other drivers, there's nothing really gonna go on at this stage. 12 drivers. Boom on Tiago, Souza on Christian, Salvo picks up a time penalty, and potentially Ben on Kevin Zunderberg is the only possibilities at this stage. Benjamin is catching up to White Sheep, but White Sheep's laps have drastically dropped down. Looking at the tyres, there's no reason for that. 12 laps on them hards, they're only on 33%, so White Sheep is losing some time now to Benjamin.
Yeah, White Sheep has got 3 seconds, whereas Ben doesn't, so in order for Ben to win this race, he must find 9 seconds in these next 7 laps. That's at least a second and a tenth or 2 per lap. It's a tall order, however, the way they're going, just pick the speed up a tiny bit more, and it's very much game on with 7 odd laps remaining.
Oh, that was close there from Souza. Christian just read him like an open book. 7 laps to go here in Monte Carlo. What about Boom on Tiago? The Racing Bull on that Scuderia. Down in towards Sandoval. And if there's any change in the grid order now, we'll probably see it between these 2 drivers.
Well, with the things currently standing, Boom could be P11. He's got 12 seconds compared to Souza with 9 and Salvo on 6. Souza just has to stay within 3 seconds of Boom. And then that's P10 for them, because Salvo will get promoted 1.5 off at the moment. And Boom will just get demoted all the way down to P11. So it could be a massive change for the Racing Bulls outfit. And quite a good boost for the likes of Haas and Aston Martin.
Yeah, that's the problem when you're a driver and you end up getting penalties. No matter how well you do in the race, it can all be undone in a blink of an eye just by cutting them corners or pushing too hard. That is Diogo Silva into the pit lane, but he will be a lapped driver by pretty much everybody shortly. So as Salva and Souza comes round, Souza is still chasing out Christian for P9, and this will probably end up being for P8 once Boom finishes and gets that time penalty. We've got 5 laps to go, and it is still White Sheep that leads, but he is still losing time again to Benjamin, and then a huge gap, 27 seconds between the top 3 is a massive gap here in PSGL F2. It's not something you see on a regular basis anyway.
It definitely isn't. Like, these drivers split by hundredths, maybe thousandths of a second per lap, yet it's really just been opened up by that wet start, to say the least. You saw those strategies being kicked in from the second lap here today, as there's a big lockup by Christian as they go into the Novell chicane. It's looking comfortable for the McLaren. They're slowly starting to get out of that DRS range over Souza. However, the Haas doing all they can to stay in. Yes, admittedly they're fighting for 9th on track, but irrespective of what happens, unless Souza can beat Christian by 9 seconds, it'll be Christian who takes that P9 spot, which will of course be P8 after Boom has their penalties applied.
And Boom as well went for a cheeky little move on Thiago in towards Sandy Vaught. The Ferrari driver seen him coming from a mile away and he was able to cover it off. But it was an optimistic move that he wasn't able to get to fruition. But he is still going to try again as Boom coming down in towards the start of the tunnel section. And then under the tunnel where you hear the engines roar here in Monaco as they go towards turn 10 at the Nouvelle chicane, slightly downhill. The Ferrari with a little lock up at the front right, and IRT Boom. That is yellow flag, that's Christian that's out. He's done the exact same thing at the Nouvelle chicane, and the papaya is out here in Monte Carlo.
Yeah, I think I'll be the same as you when I say this, but that's 5 DNFs. 4 of them in the same corner.
Wow.
How's there no safety car?
Yeah, well, I was surprised that we never got a safety car when we had the first one, because there was like multiple incidents on the same lap.
The first 3 DNFs, there were like 3 DNFs in 1 lap, no safety car.
Yeah.
Have they set it to reduced? That's probably the only thing I can think of. It doesn't disrupt the racing as much. However, when you're in a position where you can get an overtake, it's crucial. Like Salvo has now just gone up to P9 with Thiago taking a stop. But with that safety car, it could be make or break for drivers' races, which I think is what we kind of need in events like this.
Yeah, I agree. Ben's going into the pit lane, but he's got a 33-second gap.
Yeah, I'm just looking at what Ivan said, and they said they need to up the safety car chances, since it's not realistic. Like 8 cars DNFing, 5 of them in the same corner, yet 4 VSCs instead of 2 safety cars. Like, if you think about it, if the safety car was called, we may have not had 2 of those crashes, maybe even 4 of them.
Yeah, and here comes TRT Zane. Sorry, Harry. TRT Zane on TF10 Sam. He went for the move. Sam went deep to try and cover him off, and TRT Zane read him. And it was so clever from TRT Zane. The race IQ was brilliant. And then the Sauber goes deep. The McLaren is holding on. They do collide. The McLaren is through. And the Sauber slots in into P6. Well done, Zane. That was brilliant.
Yeah, just caught him straight away off guard with that VSC ending. Unfortunately, Sousa was caught off guard quite a bit, getting 10 seconds for ignoring blue flags, which is a shame, because that now guarantees them P10 at best in this race. At least for Boom, that's 1 less place they lose. However, it's still a big confidence knock, especially for that Haas driver, whilst Thiago has overtaken Salvo with those brand new tyres on the Ferrari. They are definitely going for the fastest lap attempt here on those softs.
Yeah, so getting on to them fresh rubbers. White Sheep 12 seconds clear, and then Benjamin 16 seconds clear of Kevin Zunneberg. So they're all actually catching up slightly to White Sheep. Not like it makes a difference with 2.5 laps to go. We've got 11 drivers left, and that is after 9 DNFs.
Yeah, Thiago has just done 1.6 seconds quicker that previous tour round. And if you think about it, they had to overtake an Aston Martin on the way. Let's say that was half a second lost. That half a second could easily be what gives them the fastest lap point here today. So keep an eye out on that Ferrari, whilst everyone is rather openly spaced out across this track, going through that Monaco hairpin, working their way down to Portier and Mirabeau low. They're now getting back into the lap traffic. That is Diogo Silva getting out of the way. Then the car straight up ahead is Sousa. It will be better if they get the lap done before they finally get in that treacherous 7 tenths of Sousa. That's when the dirty air will really kick in, as after the first 2 sectors it's a 1.5 improvement. the Ferrari still lapping quite quickly as there's a snap from Sousa ahead. Could there be a move made between the Ferrari and the Haas rounding out the final corner for the penultimate time of their race? Up to line, could it be fastest lap here for Thiago? No, it won't. It will instead be a 10th lost.
Yeah, Thiago on the very final lap, chasing down Sousa. Where is White Sheep, the Haas driver, just coming out of Casino? He is the race leader, 11 seconds clear on the final lap of the Grand Prix here in PSF2 for PSGL. Partnered by Sim Racing Setups. Make sure you check them out for all your sim racing setup needs and use code PSGL on checkout for a 5% discount on your order. If you do iRacing, F1, a setup course, you name it, they got it. They will give you your perfect sim racing setup. We are on board with Thiago as he chases down Sousa down in towards the Novel chicane at turn 10 and 11, back onto the throttle, but he cannot catch them. And White Sheep in the Haas coming in towards turn 15 and 16, down towards Raskas we go. The Haas driver, the Phenom, comes through in towards Anthony Nogueras. He has been unstoppable, incredible, invaluable. White Sheep wins here in Monaco. Benjamin in the Alpine with a great strategy is going to come through to take P2. The Alpine puts on a great showing. Kevin Zunderberg in the Red Bull a bit behind, but he's going to take a podium, Harry.
Yeah, it must be frustrating for Zonnenberg. Of course, we both know he was on pole position. He then led the opening 5 laps, but then the strategy really just caved in on itself, as it will be P3 for Zonnenberg. Alpine, however, as I said before this race, they'll be skyrocketing up that championship, 10 points entering it, 30 points leaving it. As things stand, then it's going to be Zane going through the swimming pool to take home P5 in that McLaren, with Sam in P6 for the Sauber. As a whole, it's definitely not been the weekend most teams would want, but it's been a weekend that Alpine needed, as Diogo Silva retires, so we get 10 finishers here today.
Wow, so Diogo retires on the final lap, so half the grid out and half the grid finish here in PSGL round 3 in Monaco. We'll go through the final standings. So on the top step is White Sheep once again. There you have it. The Dutchman performing for the fans. It is the Hungarian in P2. So let's run through your final orders here in PSF2 for PSGL. It is White Sheep that takes the race victory, a dominant display once more. Benjamin in the Alpine takes P2 and Kevin Zunderberg in P3. Ben takes P4 with the fastest lap, and TRT Zane from 19th on the grid takes P5. TF10 Sam will take P6, and then Thiago in the Ferrari in P7. IRT Boom in P8, Salvo P9, Sousa in P10. The rest of the drivers did not finish. That is Diogo Silva, Christian, Lucas, Steve, Shadow, Even, Nick, Ticho, Pablo, Matthias Goulet, all do not finish here in Monaco. Harry, what a race.
Yeah, definitely one of the races of the season so far. You thought Monaco could be hectic. It was a bit more than hectic, to say the least. 10 DNFs, 7 of them in the same corners, the best way to put it. The Novel chicane is the PSGL driver killer.
It is, yeah, it absolutely is. So there we have it. So that is it. It was a long race, an hour and 40 minutes actually it ended up being. So it has been a long evening. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope the drivers have enjoyed it. It was a great one for us to watch and witness. So thank you all so much. Tune in next week, we'll be back. Thank you all for staying with us through the majority of the stream here in Monaco. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Take care and have a great week. Thank you so much for joining us. I've been your commentator, and thank you to Harry as well. Thanks, Harry.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'll see you next week as well.
Cheers, guys. Take care.